Okay, today we are going to talk about setting up the showings for your listings when you list a property. Again, it was one of those things we talk about during that initial meeting to kind of set expectations with clients. A couple of different ways you can go about accessing this. You can either sign into your dashboard and then go to your input. It is nice that these days you can go in and make these updates prior to something going live. Back in the day when some, us tenured agents got in the business, you had to wait until go live to set all this up. So it is kind of nice that it takes a little bit of the chaos out of that day. So you're going to go to input and select the property that you want to update. And then you can click manage showing time here at the bottom. And that's going to open up your showing time map. MLS and showing time are connected. They do talk to each other. So here we are able to, you see the property. I would recommend uploading a photo of it from your computer, just so that, oh, good, John, out-of-state buyer referral. That's great. Congratulations. Okay, on track. So I would recommend adding a photo just for being complete. And if you have a listing and someone maybe might be showing 4 or 5 properties that day, sometimes it is helpful to be like, oh yeah, this is the white one that we're looking at. So from here, you get to go through and answer a ton of questions. So let's just walk through. Please speak up if you've got any questions along the way. Allow showing agents to request appointments online. Yes. Allow showing agents to request virtual appointments, in person or virtual. You'll get to select what you'd like here. If you aren't going to have a video recording or like a Matterport, I would probably recommend just doing in-person only. This is like where they're going to have a radio button to select.
Can you go back? What were the choices? What was the platform?
In-person and virtual.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we're going to say in-person only unless we have a Matterport or a video recorded for it. And then under our appointment settings, you're going to want to select what type of appointment. Now, we've talked about this before when we were on the listing or the buyer side of things. One option would be appointment required. And what that means is that the buyer's agent is going to have to wait to get approval or any instructions for how to enter the property until after your seller has confirmed the appointment. They contact your seller via email, via text, or phone call on how you set things up. If they elect to do appointment required, most clients are going to be okay with using text. And what happens there is a text message, when set up properly, will go out to all sellers listed and yourself. And all they have to do is reply yes to approve that showing. A lot of times it becomes a fun game for the sellers and they're super excited. I would say if you're going to go the appointment route, consider your clients, and if that's going to overwhelm them to be getting a gazillion text messages, note that you can set it up to be one way for the first 3-4 days it's on the market, and then later modify it. So you could set it up to be courtesy or to be go and show if your clients are for sure not going to be home during certain hours, just so that they're not, you guys have seen the posts, people are getting 126 showings in a day. Well, that's 126 texts coming to approve it. And then once it's approved, you get another text saying that it was approved, right? So we can see how that could kill somebody's phone battery pretty quickly and maybe overwhelm them. I would do that cautiously though. I think there's times where if you give people the expectation that it's a go and show and it appears as though somebody isn't living there, and then all of a sudden a week later it is where someone might be there sleeping or living. People sometimes will be like, well, it was a go and show last time, and they just pop in and see it. So just note that could very well happen. A courtesy or go and show would be where they're going to get the approval to go. Your clients are going to just get notified that somebody's coming between 5 and 6. So again, you can change those at any time if you leave it appointment required. Is the listing agent accompanied showing? No. So that would be if it's listing agent present. Oftentimes that's going to be something you're going to see in higher dollar amounts. So in a house that might be listed above 800, 900,000, they might have where they're going to ask that the listing agent be present. The other day, one of you had an example where there was a client that wanted to have listing agent present because they were very particular about things. So does it happen at other price points? Yes. If you ever get asked if you will do listing agent present, agree to that sparingly or with good knowledge, because it is a lot of extra work to be present. So if you've got a $300,000 listing and they're wanting you to be present for everything because they're just are particular, you might want to set up those showings to be where you've got a smaller window of like, okay, we are going to accept all showings between, 1 o'clock and 6 o'clock on Tuesday, just so that you're not having to drop at the hat, go out and attend everything. All right, next here is our feedback template, guys. We are going to discuss how you guys get to make custom feedback templates, which I highly recommend you do on your listings. Otherwise, it will be just the standard showing time template, which would be, you're going to see the showing time, which if you've shown before and you got that, like, how did you feel like the showing was on a scale of 1 to 5? That survey doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Filling it out as an agent, like showing agent that's showing the property. But so here's how you're selecting what that feedback template looks like. Next, you're going to go under your contacts. This is where you want to add either a co-listing agent if you're co-listing it with another person, or you're going to add the owner information. And here you can just add a new person. Let's call it Vicky. And then you can put in their phone number. You do want to select that it is a mobile phone so they know that it's okay for text, and then you'll have that radio button there and you'll click save. At this point is where you get to select how you want them to be contacted. And then what they mean by notify of canceled appointments, confirmed or canceled appointments, is when I said that they're going to get a message approving it and then a message saying that it was approved. So you can decline or set it up so they're not getting both.
So what is showing voice that you
That is the electronic radio, robot dial setup. Okay. Next, we're going to get to set up our notifications. You can say no same day appointments. I wouldn't recommend that. I would recommend that you use your showing restrictions to where you can block out different times rather than just saying no, nobody's allowed to set up an appointment same day. So here we're going to say there's a lead time, and what they mean by that is a notification. How much advance notice do your clients need to show their property? So we're going to say required if it's 1 hour. And this is again when you're asking your clients how much time do you need to get out of the property. We can also go in and modify this after we've been on the market for a little bit. So you can say anywhere from required would mean, and I want to make this clear, if you put it on here that your client requires a 2-hour notice and an agent calls in and says, I'd like to show this property, it's 2:30 now and I'd love to go show it at 3:45. Even if you already have another showing scheduled during that window to where your clients are going to be out, showing time is going to say, I'm so sorry, we cannot accommodate that. So note that when you put a requirement like showing time is pretty intense, most agents are going to be smart enough to pick up the phone and call you and say, hey, I know it's kind of like, is there any way I can squeeze in there? Is there somebody in there already? Kind of a thing, but that they will be pretty strict about it. Does that make sense?
And so do they have to call a showing time, or can they just look on the online thing?
They can, but as you progress in your career, you're going to find that there's going to be times that you're out looking and your client's going to say, I know we only wanted to look at houses up to 500,000 and that one's listed at 575. Can we go into that one? And you're going to have to on the fly try to schedule something quickly. And so that's more of what when those things come into play, where you would want to try to schedule something quick turnaround. Yep. Suggested to be 2 hours, which just means that they're not going to hold tight to that. They just would recommend.
And if you were to pick go and show, would any of this would we have to fill it out?
You still get to be prompted for that. So they still can have a amount of time notice. And and back in the day, guys, it's a little different now, and this is all about strategy. But back in the day, it would be on a Saturday, I do need 2 hours notice to get all of the animals, the people loaded up and things cleared off, right? And again, that's what I'm talking about, strategy. Sometimes you've got a different strategy for the first weekend you're on the market, or the first week you're on the market. And then after that, if it hasn't sold, you can change up your restrictions and your settings. So minimum appointment time, there's no minimum appointment time, but your max is again where we're going to say it can only be 30 minutes or an hour. If you do leave 2 hours there, some people will schedule a 2-hour showing window, and it's always awkward when your clients call you and say, we really have to be out of the house for 2 hours for this guy. Like, really? So no, I would say if you can give people an hour, that's great. I think it's crazy sometimes that we're living in a world of half-hour, 15-minute showing time windows, but it is the world we live in. Okay, allow overlapping showings. I would recommend you say, do the default, which says yes, tell this showing agent ahead of time that they'd be overlapping, because otherwise, again, it's going to say, nope, you can't show it from 3 to 4 because there's already another showing from 2:30 to 3:30. Most people are going to have common courtesy and knock on the door and say, hey, do you care if we come through? But I really think it's best, especially as how hard it is to get into houses right now, to allow those overlap showings so you can get as many people through as possible in a short amount of time and get the most exposure for your client. There is a limit to the amount of overlapping showings you have, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. As much as it's fun for it to be a zoo at your listing, sometimes too many can be, right? So you could cut it off to where to say, I'm not going to have any more than 7 overlapping at a time. On that note, when we were talking about showing houses, guys, as a listing agent, be aware too that when there's a zoo going on, it has happened before that no one at the zoo understood who the last person was, or if somebody else was still in there, and a house is left unsecured, or the front door is wide open because so many people and so many buyers and agents are flowing in and out of the property at the same time because it's a zoo or beehive or whatever you want to call it, right? So as a listing agent, if your clients they've taken off to the lake and they're gone, and so it's a great time to list it because they won't be bothered and they don't have to get out of the house, you may want to go ahead and work it into your schedule that you're going by at the end of the night, making sure that it's secure. Or you're going through during the day and just kind of checking on things and making sure things are secured. Make sense? Okay. So stick with me here. This is sometimes where it can get a little bit hairy. So adding showing restrictions. You can restrict when a appointment can start, and you can have it be repeating, and when it can end. So what I mean by that, sometimes your clients will say, I don't want any showings before 9 o'clock because I've got to get the kids to school. It's too crazy. We don't want to have any showings before 9 o'clock. So you're going to be able to come in here and say no showings between 5 a.m. and 9 o'clock. You can also do an all-day restriction to say, okay, they're getting carpet put in, and so we decided to go ahead and upgrade the carpet because it's not selling. We're going to do an all-day restriction on Saturday so they can install the carpet. This is where if you wanted to do so we're going to say save, please enter valid date. Okay. We could do this for the 28th. If we wanted to just do it for one day, or if we wanted to do it for multiple for the time in which it's listed, we come over here and select the repeating restriction and say, we're going to just have it run for 3 months and have it be for every, or you could do, hold on, I'm going to slow down. And you can now hit save, and it's going to just make that showing restriction show up. Please select at least, restriction will occur wouldn't you think that would be every day? Okay, save. Reason is required. You guys, not morning people.
I have a situation that hasn't come to fruition yet, but when it does, she runs an in-home daycare. So I have thought about showing time. How in the world will we do it around the in-home daycare? Obviously, I want to list it on Thursday or Friday so we can take maximize the weekend. But I think I would have to do it only 5 o'clock or after during the week because of her in-home daycare.
And that's fine. And then you're going to just get a phone call of why your showing's restricted during the day.
And I could put in a private remark, in-home daycare, showings don't start till 5.
Yep, 100%. Okay, so then if we're going to do the same thing with the end time of things, you're going to do just the same. What I will warn you when you're setting up, and this is again more practical advice from me, Sadie, note that if you put that the showings have to be done by 8 p.m., which is the restriction now, I'm saying no showings from 8 p.m. until 11:45. Talk to your clients. Note that if you block it to where they can't schedule any past 8 o'clock, doesn't mean that they're not going to show up at 7:45 and stay for an hour. So work that into what your stop time is, that typically people may very well show up and be cruising around the house. So if they say, gosh, Elizabeth, we really need to get home to be able to get the kids back in bed and start bedtime routine by 8:30 or by 9 o'clock, then you want to work backwards from that. Does that make sense? So, and as a listing agent, it is not inappropriate for you to call and say, hey, how are things going there? It's 8:15, or 8:40, 8:40, sellers are kind of hoping to get back. A lot of times buyers don't know. They might be sitting at the kitchen table and just really enjoying and talking about offer terms or whatnot, and they're just kind of not aware. So it's completely okay for you as a listing agent to pick up the phone and say, get the heck out of my listings. People want to come home.
You would do that if your sellers came home with like someone in their driveway, or you just call and say, hey, you guys wrapped up.
Typically, you're going to get a call from your sellers. That's going to be like, dude, it's 8:40. Like we've been patient. Like they were supposed to be out by 8 and it's 8:40 now. Can you give them a call? So it's not like you're doing it proactively. It's just when your sellers are like, yeah, right. And then it's funny when they're like, oh yeah, we don't, they're not, don't worry, they're not interested. And you're like, awesome. So you just hung out at our house for 40 minutes.
And you know who to call because showing time shows you the listing agent has booked the appointment, right?
Yes. Yep. So then here you will be able to, any questions there? Now with your showing restrictions too, you can do in the middle of the day. If there's a nap time, I would say try to make your showing restrictions as least as possible, guys, but that's how you block them to keep people from scheduling during that time. Okay, access details. If you have a gate code, so if this is in a gated community, or again, your condos, typically you might have a gate code where you're going to enter that here. And then your access type. Most of the time, it's going to be a Supra iBox if you're utilizing Supra iBox, or a combo box combination. So you'll want to select one of those two things. And then it's going to just want to, sometimes you'll put a location on their front door. You put it on the handrail of the stairs, it'd be good to select that. If you have alarm information, you would select yes for alarm information and put that information in here. Again, think about like using that at your client's comfort level, but that's made some really good fun stories sometimes. If you have where you're doing a combo box, you're going to want to then enter the combination here so that they've got that. You guys may have seen when you've been showing where some people have the smart keys on the front door. I always think that's an interesting way to enter a house, but sometimes people will give that out instead of using a lockbox. If it's your listing and it's at all possible, I would not recommend using that. It's really difficult enough to get buyers agents to understand how to use the Supra iBox and then a combo. And sometimes you're not able to record. The nice thing about a Supra iBox is that it's recording every single person that opens that lockbox or that iBox up, and like what time it is, that kind of a thing. When you're giving out a code like that, it definitely makes it a little more hairy.
So I've only had one listing and I used an iBox, and as a buyer's agent, I prefer the iBox. But a lot, especially in Missouri, they seem to use the combos. Where do you even get them?
Home Depot or Lowe's sells them. They're about $30 to $35 a piece. I will tell you, there's YouTubes to show you how you can easily disassemble and access those combo lock boxes too. I used to always use it as a part of my selling technique. So a combo, like $30, $35, it's yours for life, right? Another Supra, you rent, you lease those for $20 a year, and it's prorated by month. So it starts in February. So let's say that typically most times agents are going to go get a Supra iBox when they get a listing. It's not like you're going to go out tomorrow and be like, yo, I'm going to have 4 of these. You kind of wait until you get listings and then you start to build up your inventory and you keep it, right? So you'll go get one and then you keep that one until next February. You get a second listing and you need 2, you go get your second one because you've already got one on another house, kind of a thing. But like, for example, if you're going and getting one in August, it's $10 to lease that Supra iBox all the way until February. Does that make sense? Because it's prorated. And it was a nice selling feature that I didn't feel like cost a whole lot as an agent to say, I, as an agent, find it very important to use a Supra iBox because it records every single person that comes into the house. And there have been times where, unfortunately, fence gates get left open and dogs have escaped, or a key goes missing, or, hey, do you know who was in? They got muddy tracks all over the house, kind of a thing. And it was helpful to be able to go back and see who had been in the property.
So how do you access that? Who's using it?
You go and sign into Supra and it'll show you everybody that's accessed the property. I will say, and there's been times where people have shown up in which like an access to property and they didn't have an appointment because they misscheduled it, that kind of a thing. A couple things on the super, and I'll get off of the iBox sitch. You can attach it to the front door. Be careful in doing so because sometimes the heat of the sun will cause it to stick to the paint and destroy the paint. Also, sometimes with it banging against the front door, it damages the front door. That's never a good day when you go to pick up your iBox and its closing's already happened. And then you're like, oh, I damaged the door. Now what do I do? And a lot of times your storm door won't close all the way with that iBox on there. Most agents are going to just set it down next to the front door. This also allows for someone else to pick it up on your behalf, whether it be your significant other, your kid brother, like whatever it might be, that you could say, can you swing by and get the sign in the lockbox for me? Because I'm super busy because I have 6 new clients because I've been working so hard. So that might be another reason.
Why would they steal it because they can't get into it?
Yeah, I mean, are you running the risk of someone taking it? Sure. And that's where sometimes people will put it on a handrail. But I think a lot of times it's like, okay, what's the point in stealing it because you can't open it anyways without having the e-key. The nice thing too about that iBox being that way, I've had before where unfortunately somebody did come and access the property without a showing or without permission. And from that point on, and I've also offered to people, once we're under contract, if you want to pull that iBox inside, it's very easy for them to pull it inside the front door. So somebody can't come and go as they please once they're under contract. So it gives the seller a little bit of control. Now you have to remember that. And when you say, oh, they're coming for inspections, don't forget to put that iBox back out front for me. But sometimes that gives the sellers peace of mind that the key is now inside and people can't just be coming and going as they're, wanting to act, after they're under contract and they're not maybe expecting it. Does that make sense? Okay, so you're going to have the opportunity to put some additional instructions on here. Has anyone scheduled a showing in which you've had to listen to them rattle off all of the instructions that they, so just think of that, like it is going to be something that some people are going to read or it's going to get in an email. I don't know that you need to say, leave a card, turn all lights off, like wipe your feet, like all of those things that would keep it pretty direct and to the point. There's 2 small cats in the house. Friendly, but like please watch the door and make sure they don't get out would be an important thing to include, right? They've also have some pre-defined ones. Again, this is not an opportunity to get click happy. I would try to keep it pretty straightforward. Like please scramble lockbox when leaving. Really? That was a joke, I'm sure. Okay, you can put your driving directions in here again. Most of the time people are pulling that off of their sellers off of the MLS. Okay, you definitely do have the ability to add any attachments. If you'd like to add the seller's disclosure here or MLS, you're more than welcome to upload it here for them. And then you've got a couple listing activity reports. Once you go live, you're going to see, Krista, as you asked, where all of the showings that are set up and what the status of those are. And then if they provided feedback.
I don't think I'm sure where to get this.
Yep, so it's when you go back to, so in your listing, you can, so back to the listing, you're going to go to this listing activity report on the left, and then it's going to open up a whole bunch more options for you. So you've got a homeowner version that they can sign into here. And then you can add activities too if you'd like. If there's ever a time that you're showing it to an unrepresented buyer, I would recommend that you schedule a showing, partly so that you can provide feedback for that buyer and capture the information. So I would just go in and schedule a showing yourself. And then you can send a notification. I want to make sure to point all of this out to you on your showings as well. So if you go and you list a property and you end up with multiple offers and you're going to collect those multiple offers through 4 o'clock on Saturday because you'd like to make your weekends crazy, you can come here, click send notification, and it's going to allow you to send notification to all of the different agents. Normally, it will give you a checkbox to go and uncheck some people's names. You might say, Elizabeth, why would I do that? Well, if Krista's brought me an offer on the property and Angie's brought me an offer on the property and all the rest of y'all have shown it, I might send the rest of you a message and uncheck their 2 names to say, we've got multiple offers, please bring your highest and best, so that they don't know I'm shopping their offers. Does that make sense? Also, sometimes I've been kind when someone's come back and given feedback to say, Elizabeth, we're not interested. I do take a moment to not send them a notification that we're doing a price drop or that we're doing highest and best because they've already said it's not the house for us. I would recommend updating your subject line here just so that it's clear if that's like notification multiple offers or something, that it's clear to the agents showing that that's what you're doing. Sound good? It's a quick, easy way to notify everybody. And then you can print out those reports. We talked about doing weekly listing reports for any properties that you don't sell immediately. My condolences if you don't sell something immediately. I would recommend to sending those out weekly so that you can really use that to your benefit in getting a price reduction. Okay. Anything else, guys, when it comes to setting up the actual listing?
Is there a different process for brokers?
You're going to put it in the MLS and then people see it in MLS. So yes, it is different. And I would, thank you for asking on that, because it triggers for me to tell you too, if you are holding a house open for another agent, sometimes it's nice for you to schedule a showing, even if it's not for the entire time, but to schedule a showing during that time. And then you're able to do some feedback through the system to the sellers that way too. And it captures that you're, showing the property. Yep. So if you're open, if you are an agent holding an open house for another agent, you may want to schedule a showing or a preview, agent preview for yourself, so that you've got the ability to get the survey and provide feedback that way, in addition to giving it to the listing agent.
I had a listing agent ask me to set up my open house and showing time so that I can then provide a feedback. So that was the first time I needed to actually do that. And it doesn't say, they thought it said it's open house, and for one of the reasons, inspection.
Yeah.
appraisal. They thought open house was one of them, but it isn't. So I just did a 2-hour show.
Nice. Next would be feedback. Do you guys want, so this is just a different view, guys, if you want to see your showing restrictions. And you can go down to the day to make sure. I would do a pulse check. I've had people before put stuff on and they accidentally blocked out everything between 9 a.m. and 8 p.m. instead of the opposite. So it's definitely a good opportunity to go in and make sure you set things up properly. Okay. Feedback. This is where we want to, you can go and see what feedback you have on your listings, and then you can see the feedback that you need to leave on houses that you might have shown. So this is from properties. Again, they had a standard, but this is the feedback I left to the sellers. We've talked before as a buyer's agent, giving feedback is really helpful to a listing agent because it gives them the ammunition they need to try to make some adjustments in just keeping their clients educated. I would say if you're going to write an offer, you're welcome to put in here, writing an offer, we'll get it over to you ASAP. A lot of times with a multiple offer situation, it gives the seller, the listing agent, the ability to go through and make sure that they've captured everybody that said they were writing an offer. I'll be completely honest with you, as a listing agent, it is very overwhelming. You are getting a gazillion phone calls from a gazillion people. You often do not have some of their names and numbers like saved in your phone. The nice thing about being in this business for a while is that people do have your name and number saved, and they do know that, oh, Elizabeth Sadie's calling again to make an offer on my property. I'm going to answer that, or that's who's texting me back and forth. Otherwise, you might just be a 913-809-9751. I don't know who that is from this person to that person. You said you were writing an offer, but somebody else with a 913 number said they're writing an offer, kind of a thing. But off the soapbox. So to talk about what I would highly recommend when you're doing your listings is to go in and take the time to create a custom feedback form. And so in here, you can go in and say, I want to create a new template. And on here, you're able to generate your own questions. So you can either do a multiple choice question or you can add free text. It's not rocket science. How did you hear about the listing? Look at this, typing here. Person knows about my desire to type in front of people and spell things correctly. See, it's not that hard. It's not that easy. Okay, so I think you get the gist, right? And that maybe not be a question. You can add free form text where you're going to just ask your question and then they can type away here. So instead of continuing on with that, I'm going to go and show you one that I created. Is that okay? Okay. Oh, look at that. Is it going to let me? You guys, we saw it before. Why wouldn't it be here? Patience. Okay. Didn't we just see one for me? Okay. Just kidding. Right, you guys, we saw it over here. I'm gonna go back to on my listings. And I'm gonna be patient. Okay. Oh, let me go back and from, maybe it's because it's it's not active yet. It's not wanting to let me access it that way. I apologize, guys. Trial and error. Here we go. Really? Okay. Here we go. I think you get one shot. Yeah. You close that sucker out or you step away from it. You got to go all the way back in. Okay. So here we had our feedback template. I wonder if it'll let me preview it. So we see it exists, right? Everyone sees this. I'm not crazy.
Wait, what was that agent?
Yeah, I think that was the one we just created. Yeah, that was the one we just created. And then this is the one. The overall, this is your rate your own overall expenses. Yes. Well, guys, this is gonna make me very frustrated because I want to be able to show you. So let me see if I can go in and find. Oh yeah, here we go. Oh, you guys are gonna get sick. Nope. It's a Monday. You guys you're totally like it's a Monday. Okay. I love too that you guys get to see. Here we go. This is a good one. No, it's not. I'll just
So do
see.
you do them for every, do you change it up every time you have a listing, or do you pretty much have an each state agent?
I had one that I was pretty standard, and yet I would make changes to it. Okay, let's go off of these guys. I think that gives you the general idea. You guys are pretty smart people. I mean, really smart. Okay, so you get to go in and create specific to your property, okay? So how soon is your buyer looking to purchase a home? Was a question I often would ask. And then my drop down in the questions for that, I think this is in the other one that I just closed, is 0 to 30 days, 31 to 60 days, 61 to 90 days. As a listing agent, sometimes this was helpful for me because if the seller or if the buyer was like, I want to buy in 90 plus days, then I knew that they weren't as somebody to like really follow up on as much as someone that was going to buy in the next 0 to 30 days, right? Like that they need to get in a house. Part of what I'm developing in my questions as a listing agent is to give me more ammunition, if you can imagine, to negotiate with the other clients. So, right. So if somebody checks 0 to 30 or someone checks like they in the next 60 days, then I know like these people need a house. I could probably push them a little harder towards our number. Does that make sense? I also was funny, believe it or not, and would put, I don't know if ever. I've shown them a lot of houses because it's the listing, it's the buyer's agent that's filling it out. Yeah. Is there anything your buyer liked about the home? Is there anything that they disliked or would change?
So in this case, it looks like they didn't answer that.
Correct. They didn't answer these two.
Hang on.
Right. And you don't have to. So no, you can go through all the work of putting together as many great questions as you'd like. I often would recommend that your last box, your last question be free form text so they can, a lot of times some agents will just scroll to the bottom and then put their feedback there because they're like, I'm not answering all your questions.
Yeah, which they, if we read 6, they didn't answer some of those.
Right. Right. So some people like don't like to play that game. If, you know, I think that it's helpful sometimes, but thoughts on price. And again, is there anything they would dislike or change? Was giving me the opportunity to say, hey, they really didn't like the way the hardwood floors were finished. Thoughts on price would be about right, somewhat overpriced, somewhat underpriced, right? To where that would give you ability. Again, if you list something and it's not selling within the first 5 to 6 days, it's helpful to have that question on there because as a buyer's agent, I may very well say, great house, seems somewhat overpriced or, you know, substantially overpriced. And then as a listing agent, I can go to my sellers on the next Monday when I'm doing my feedback and say, I got you 24 showings. Of the 24 showings, 12 agents answered on price And of those 12, 10 of them said they thought it was somewhat overpriced. I think we need to do a price reduction. The other way that this works in your favor as a listing agent, if you have 24 showings, 12 or 12 to 18 agents do feedback, and they're all saying about right, and you get an offer that tries to lowball you, which again, I know doesn't ever happen in this market, you can go to and see like, hey, everybody else, it wasn't the house for their buyer, but they thought we were priced appropriately. So like, we're gonna push back and hold tight. Does that make sense? The next one I often would include is your buyer considering the property. This is a yes, no, I'm not sure question. And the reason being is if someone's going to click no, I know not to worry about following up with them. The people aren't interested. They're clicking yes, obviously, like, okay, they're probably going to leave notes if they're going to make an offer. If they say, I don't know, I mean, like, again, there's times where we're not in that market, but there are times sometimes where you do, that is helpful to say, okay, it says, I don't know, I'm not going to let that one die. And I'm going back to, you guys are going to be blessed with and fortunate to get listings out in way out maybe in a less desirable area or a less desirable home that you might have to work a little harder to get it sold. And then general feedback, any additional information we can provide you or your buyer. And that was again where they would have the ability to put in more information. Okay.
Question about feedback. When I was selling my house, as far as an agent, I was getting emails about agent's feedback. Is that normal for the sellers to get that as well?
Yes, and there should be on our settings that for the listing that you can say if they receive it immediately. So thank you for stating that. Share showing agents details with your clients. We're going to say no. And then there should be another box that says, do you want us to share the feedback immediately? And I'm not seeing it. I don't know why it's not showing it, but you can make it to where you have to approve it before it goes to your client. And the times that I would do that is because we did have a house that maybe smelled of something unpleasant that I wanted to be able to regulate to my clients and kind of make sure that I was helping to protect them from any inappropriate or mean comments. The other times too, and again, it's like, you know how many times I tell you it's all about personality of your clients and reading those. The people that were like maybe the ones that would call you like nonstop, like and text you nonstop as you're preparing their house because they're super anxious people. Those are the people I often wouldn't release it to immediately either, because you're going to have someone leave you feedback if I'm bringing you an offer. And as soon as that hits their inbox, your phone's blowing up. Oh my God, what's the offer? What is it? Like, da, da, da. And I will tell you, there's times where agents will say they're bringing you an offer and then the offer never shows up in your inbox. And so that was another time that I would sometimes put like, I want to be a barrier here so that we're not sending anxious Angie, not anxious Angie. I didn't mean that, sorry. Anxious Amy, right? A message that she's getting an offer before it's time. Okay.
Well, just curious, this house you just showed us, was it a flip of yours or?
It was my personal residence.
Oh.
Yeah. So I lived there for 9 years. That I got the pleasure of selling this summer. So, but yeah, I would say that you are watching the feedback and you're following up on it too. And a lot of times too, they're going to say, hey, I'm bringing you an offer, or do you have anything working? Have you guys that had any of that? Has anyone gone over any of that lingo with you? I know we talked a little bit maybe when we first started with talking as a buyer's agent. As a listing agent, you do want to go into listing a property knowing, again, what some of those terms are your client wants, especially if you think it's going to be a competitive listing. So knowing that their ideal closing date is this, and their ideal possession is this price, these are the things that are important to them. They're not emotionally attached to the house, so don't worry about sending me a love letter. People just want money. Like they just want the most that they can for the house, kind of a thing. What your access is to your clients and if they would be willing to accept an offer without doing multiple highest and best kind of a thing. And I think that, so be prepared. So this is something that when you're listing and you're talking about when you're taking a property live, you're going to say when showing, you can block out all the showings, right? So when you take that listing live prior to that day, even if it goes in the MLS at 10 a.m. in the morning, you can magically have all of the showings blocked to not start until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. This is being recorded, and I got in trouble many a times with MLS because I play a fun little game with them where I would put it in the MLS on Thursday, and then I would block all the showings where they couldn't start until 10 a.m. on Friday. but it gave me the ability to get more exposure on Thursday so that people could then be better prepared. To me, I was being a good friend to my fellow buyer's agents, because then it wasn't like, oh, this came on the market at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Thursday. Now I have to drop everything and run and try to go show it so they don't accept something. I was trying to be a good person. Sometimes they would, and they often will come back, and you can get in trouble if it's not something that can be shown immediately. So be very thoughtful and purposeful in how you word things if you're going to do something like that. I often would say, I'm going to put it in on Thursday at 4 o'clock. And then in my showing instructions, I would say sellers prefer 12-hour notice or something, to where I had like, well, I'm putting, and they want 12 hours notice. Well, magically, they changed their mind when they woke up Friday morning. And all of a sudden they decided they no longer need that 12-hour notice, right? Or sellers prefer no showings until after 10 a.m. on Friday. So I was not getting myself in trouble, but you cannot put something in the MLS and then restrict showings for like multiple days. And they will get on to you if you're doing that. I mean, my assistant would be like, they're calling again, Elizabeth. And I'm like, okay, what's our new game? Like, what's our new strategy on how we're going to get the most exposure for our clients and keep things calm? But it is something to think about. So as soon as it hits the MLS, be prepared that people could schedule showings if you do not have it blocked within 15 minutes, within 30 minutes. Like it is something to be prepared for and for your clients to be prepared for. So when you're getting ready to go live, make sure that you say, okay, guys, I'm going to do my best to get it in by 10 a.m. on Thursday morning. What time do you want showings to start? So I can proactively go in and block those showings until after like 1 o'clock or something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but as a buyer's agent, unless they literally put in their remarks, and it sounds like you're saying you would do that, but sellers prefer whatever, 12 hours notice. But if they don't do that, and you as a buyer's agent go to showing time and look at it online and it's all blocked out, you can't tell if those are showings or they blocked it out. So you could be like, oh my gosh, this is already completely booked up with showings.
True, but then there's people that like, catch on to your games and they're like, wait a minute, this came on the market an hour ago. How is it already all booked out? So, I mean, you can, and like Chris said, you might get away with that for like 1 or 2 listings. I'm just saying there are MLS police out there. They will come for you.
I would probably put it in pre-MLS if I get it, it's not gonna get the same exposure, but I don't know.
Yeah. Again, just be making sure that you're giving yourself time. If you still need to get the lockbox out there, a sign or some different things, that you're blocking it out enough time to get yourself in, that your clients are aware. Because it is a day, I think we've talked about it before, it is a chaotic day sometimes where they're still trying to get one more load of laundry through and folded and put away, or animals out, or like one more touch up of the paint or something of the sort, that you want to make sure you're setting clear expectations around that. And then when it comes to that feedback on the scheduling it and approving, I don't think I mentioned before, only one person has to approve it. And oftentimes it would become a game between clients for like, who got to it first, right? But, and we said in that Go Live email that there's an app, and that's a good way for them to manage it, because it gets very, very confusing for them. So if they sign into the app, they can see, okay, we've got showings starting at 1. It looks like we have a tiny break between 4:15 and 4:30, and then we have them all the way through 8 o'clock tonight. But it's helping them manage it, because it's really hard to keep up with all the text messages. So it's nice for them to have a place to log in and see it there. All right. Any other questions when it comes to showing?
I don't really understand that app and how your client, but if I don't think you need to go through it, I'll figure it out when I get there.
Yeah, no, and it's like, well, it's ever changing, but basically when they pull it up, they can see all of their showings and it has them all in order. For them, it's not going to show the listing agents' names.
And
but
you just give them a link so that
they go into the app store on their Android or their Apple,
Oh,
and they can
okay.
download it there.
And is it a showing time?
Yeah, it's the same one that you use.
I mean, but it's the same app we have, but do they have different access?
Yes, like theirs looks different because it's not going to be like all the listings set up, but yes, like it's different. And there's an online, like sometimes too, I would do that for people that are at work so that they can sit at work and like nobody needs to know I'm checking how many showings I have and what feedback we've gotten, kind of a thing. So, okay. If you're getting offers, I do recommend you start your multiple offer spreadsheet like early on and enter all of that information in there as they come in and be communicating with people. But, all right. I think I did tell you about blocking your calendar. I started to tell you about that no, like if it's your mom's birthday and she's in from out of town, like I wouldn't take a house live that day. Because your phone typically will be blowing up. I'm going out of town on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I'm purposely not listing my renovation project until I get back. Because you do not want to be that agent that lists a property and then is MIA and nobody can get a hold of them. Do keep your phone charged. You wouldn't believe how much those text messages drain it and how much you're on the phone, but like, be thoughtful that when you're listing your day may be a little bit crazy and you need to communicate to your family and your support system that like, hey, I might be kind of busy tonight and it may not be a good night for date night, like kind of thing. Cool. Sorry, super easy. Thank you. All right.